Let's get back to the budget and back to Canberra now, because joining me is Independent MP Dai and Independent MP Kylie Tink. Thanks so much, ladies, for joining me this morning. First of all, Kylie, I'll get from both of you a good and a bad element of the budget.
Good element of the budget, restraint. I think we saw a budget that was handed down that invested in supporting the most vulnerable within our community without going overboard in how that support is being provided. The bad, no real reform on how our economy derives its income. And as a consequence, we have an economy that is still built off the back of workers, workers that are getting tired, workers that are ageing. And, you know, the fact of the matter that the government will make more off somebody's tobacco addiction than they will make off the gas that is extracted from our ground in the next 12 months is simply mind-blowing.
Dai.
Look, for me, I'm glad that the government made cost of living as the centrepiece of the budget. Since my election to Parliament, I have kind of made cost of living an issue with the government and have raised it with them over and over. So it's great to see that's what the government has done. In terms of support, obviously, you know, it's great to see some increase to those in need. I question, though, $40 a fortnight, which is $20 a week for job seeker. It works out to be about $2.85 a day. You know, for students travelling to uni or to work, it costs about $6 from Fowler into the city. And for adults, it's about $12 a day return for public transport, and not to talk about the toll that you have to pay as well. So, so I don't know what's the, you know, such small measure. I don't know how that's going to assist, because the cost of living is still such a you know, so high. Rent is high, interest rate is high. The issue for me, although, is the students. 20% of our students in Fowler go to university, and there's 7% indexation, which means they'll have to fork out like high, you know, pay for their HECS. And many of our parliamentarians, of course, have had free education. So from my perspective, it's going to be for the young people of our community, not just in Fowler, but across the country. They will have to really find a means to actually study and go to work and all of that. And these are the future of our country, and we are not supporting them at all. So there are more, of course, in the budget, but those are the things that I picked out from it. Yeah,
certainly. I just want to pick up on HECS debt and students as well. Is there a problem with the indexation? Of course, you know, it's a loan from the government. Indexation, I guess, has to happen. But a lot of students are complaining about the time in which that is done. Money is taken out, you know, every pay packet when you start paying your HECS debt, but the indexation doesn't come until much later in the year. Can something be done about that easily, do you think?
Well, I think we did raise that with the finance minister, and obviously, you know, indexation is something that they can't stop, apparently. However, from my perspective, there must be other ways that we can support young people. They are the future of this country. And for me, 20% of my electorate are university students. Another 20% are high school students going into university. So 7% is a lot of money. And so I think there should have been some measures in place. And look, it's second day after the budget. We've got to look still into, you've seen those books. And we still have to go through that and understand.
Some of those books are untouched, I've got to say. But eventually you do get to them. Kylie Tink, we saw... you know, you've got a different view to Dai. You obviously represent a very different part of Sydney. There's been a lot of talk about stage 3 tax cuts, and essentially I think what the Prime Minister has said is, like, we need that goodwill. You know, we're going to maintain this promise, we're not going to break that promise, but we can do other things, other reform is on the way. Were you pleased to hear that message?
Honestly, yes. The stage 3 tax cuts are already baked into the budget. So we saw those delivered in this budget, and we still saw a surplus delivered by this government, and we saw a significant pay down of the debt that future generations are currently going to be inheriting. Just to lean in on what Dai said, though, I think from my perspective, I don't think there was a lot in this budget for young Australians. I think anyone over the age of 16 through to about then the age of 55, unless you're a concession card holder, the message from this budget really was keep your nose to the grindstone, keep paying as much personal income tax as you possibly can, and we'll get back to you when the commodity prices start to come off and our other major source of revenue drops away. So as a young Australian, the biggest issue we have at the moment is intergenerational equity in this country. And we need a government, and quite specifically, we need this government to be brave and step into a conversation which is how do we start to address the reality of a society that has gone from having 7 working people per retiree to one which will very quickly soon only have 2 working people to each retiree. That is not sustainable. So yeah, if I was a young person in Australia, I would be disappointed by this budget because I don't think that it has done enough to support people over the age of 16 through to, you know, mid-30s to 40s.
Yeah, sorry, Kylie.
They are the future. Sorry, Laura. I think they are the future and we need to focus on them.
Yeah.
And I think that something has to be done. And I think we need to, talk about stage 3 tax cut, we need to actually have a look at how that can be reformed and actually reform the tax system, you know, so that...
So what are you talking about there, Di? Because we've spoken about stage 3 tax cuts, you know, quite extensively, you and I, on this program. Are you changing your thinking there? Do you accept the government's argument? Are you talking about tinkering with that stage 3? Because 1 and 2 have already passed, and that was for the lower end. Or are you talking about, you know, wide-scale tax reform here?
I think we've had Allegra Spender did hold a roundtable around a discussion around a whole-scale look at our tax system, whereby at the moment disproportionately the workers, those on low to middle income, are carrying the tax burden, and therefore we need to look at how we can actually shift that away and make it a fairer system. I'm no tax expert, but I know that the low to middle income families are the ones that actually really not benefiting. I mean, the lower, those on Centrelink and all that are benefiting small, but the low to middle income are not really getting much from this budget. For instance, the energy one-off $500 energy support. My understanding is that's for families on $108,000 income combined. Now, an average income in Fowler is $54,000. Now, if 2 people, you know, a family of 2 income, they'll miss out on that benefit. So, so therefore, you know, of course, I'm still going to look into it further to see how those low to middle income will benefit from this budget.
Laura, can I just comment on that? In that, I think the point you made, which is really important for all Australians to remember, is that stage 3 is a process of reform that's been taking place over 7 years. So stages 1 and 2 have been delivered. The whole point of stage 3 tax cuts was to make sure that Australians that had crept in to a higher tax bracket because of things like inflation and wage growth actually weren't being punished for falling over into that tax bracket. So for me, I think the message, as I said, the community really needs to take out. The stage 3 tax breaks are baked into our economy. This government delivered a surplus and has managed to pay down debt with those stage 3 tax cuts baked in. Those stage 3 tax cuts will mean for people and families on a combined income of 150 to 160 to 180, they will get a tax refund or a tax break that lets them put it back into their other assets. So I think it's you know, it's too easy a gimme to say let's scrap them. And I think that what we need to do is to have a really robust discussion around larger, longer form tax reform, because we cannot build our country off the back of workers indefinitely.
Yeah, that's right. I tell you what, Dai Lee, it's been going nuts on Talkback Radio this morning. Truckies are up in arms about the increase on the road user charge. Has this been something that's been on your radar? You get back to the electorate before you gauge that?
Look, you know, I mean, we have a lot of truck drivers, deliverers in our electorate. I have not obviously been back to the electorate to actually get the feedback, but I have no doubt, like I said, you know, those on low to middle income people, truck drivers, deliverers, are going to kind of obviously don't know how this budget's going to support them through this. We were still having this cost of living crisis. It's still, everything is still high. The toll is still, you know, expensive. Rent rises, petrol prices, you name it. And so I don't know how this budget really supports them.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, you're going to get quite a bit of feedback when you head back to your Sydney electorates. Kylie Tink, before I let you go, I want to ask you about resources. To be honest, this budget we see back in surplus largely because of coal and commodities. What do you think about that, and how does that fit in with the drive for renewables, another $2 billion spent on hydrogen?
Yeah, look, you know, I think what we see is, as you just said, Laura, the two greatest contributors to the surplus were the massive amount of income tax that was paid by Australians across the board. The very low level of job seeker was paid because people aren't unemployed in the numbers that they were, and it was commodity prices. And I think what we need to be really clear of there is coal is one commodity, but actually iron ore is what contributed really significantly to the upside in terms of those commodity prices. From my perspective, what I would actually argue is that should give this government every indication that if we can make money off our commodities while they're being extracted and exported, then that's absolutely what we should do. And that is the missed opportunity in the review that they've done around the prices we charge for our natural gas as it's extracted from the ground. You know, the fact that we have a natural gas industry that is, you know, posting profits of 40, 50, 60 billion dollars. And, you know, we're now got a budget which says they're going to return to our economy only $2 billion because of the royalties they'll pay. It's insane. And what surprised me about this budget actually was it really said to me that despite what we are trying to do as an economy, the fossil fuel sector still has a very strong hold over this place. The truth is, this budget still spends twice as much in fossil fuel subsidies as we will do in the investment in Medicare. The Medicare investment is $5 billion. There are $10 billion in fossil fuel subsidies. There is only $2 billion in renewable energy subsidies. So there's a lot of talk about people like myself and others on the crossbench fighting for this reform, and it just sends a really clear message. We need to keep fighting, because while it doesn't pay to have an addiction to nicotine, that is a really bad thing if you're a smoker, our addiction to gas and fossil fuels is going nowhere based on this budget, and we have to do more if we want to meet those intergenerational targets of fairness.
Kylie Tink, Dai Lee, great to have you on the program together. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.